Welcome, everybody. We are back, your friends at the Legacy Wealth Capital Group. I got my partner Sean and Kyle in the building with me. How you guys feeling today?
Great,
Good,
great. Feeling
good,
good.
good. Outstanding.
That is phenomenal. I just noticed how, when you're trying to go live on these platforms, they make you click three, four, 5 times before you can even get live. And it's like, am I live yet? Like, what is going on? But we are here. If you're tapping in from YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook, feel free to drop comments in the chat where we can answer any questions for you and we can highlight your comments and bring them up on the stage. So, tonight actually was birthed from something that happened last week and last night. I want to talk about, are you ready to pitch your company and what being ready means? Because we know that companies want capital, whether they are getting a loan, whether they're raising capital from investors, whether they're doing family and friends, whatever type or method of capital raising that you're trying to do, you have to be prepared to pitch your company. So I want to go through the elements of the pitch, starting with the elevator pitch, all the way through creating the one page of business plan up to a full fledged pitch deck. And then just some of the nuances, especially Sean, that you've seen because you're the pitch deck master, the nuances of the pitch deck, the things that need to be in place, and some things that we might not think about. Because, and I give just a little bit more background of where this is coming from. We had a pitch last week as for the final in our Capital Raising Academy class, and we had everybody come up and do their pitches virtually, of course. I've also had the pleasure of sitting on different panels over the last couple of weeks because they're graduating in different organizations and judging their pitches as well. So I've gained a lot of insight into how these pitches get put together, what is actually a winning combination or pitch deck, and then, of course, the feedback for the gaps and the things that you could miss. So from the initial elevator pitch, I'd like to get your guys' take on what's the most important element of that 30 seconds or less that you might have in front of a potential investor.
Um, I believe in the beginning, and the thing about an elevator pitch is this, right? It's your it's your chance to attract an investor immediately, right? To get him to say, "Tell me a little bit more," or so. I mean, what do you mean? Or to strike his to get his interest. You know, that's the most crucial thing in the elevator pitch because what tends to happen is you get people who market their company and they will go on this long and excuse my French, but boring dialogue with an investor. And a lot of times investors don't have that much time. I'll give you like an example. So Cal and I was at this conference, right? And I approached the guy. I got his attention immediately. He ended up saying, "Oh yeah, yeah, I do that too. Wow. If you have anything else, maybe we can give me a call and stuff like that." So I took down his number. This dude worth a lot of money, probably one of the richest men in America. But I got his information probably less than 5 minutes. But I caught his attention initially by what I said. So an elevator pitch got to is usually is 30 seconds or less. You have to be able to make the person understand, believe in your project, and ask for more questions. And when he asks for more questions, then now you can kind of, get into the meat and potatoes of it. But first, it's all about attraction.
What about you, Kyle?
Yeah, you know what? That was a very, very good question, and I would say that my answer is more on the lines of confidence. I want to see confidence, and a lot of times if people have an idea or something like that, and they bring it and they're not confident, you're not going to get my attention. So in your first 10 seconds, I'm looking to see what's your posture like. Are you confident in what you're saying? Are you telling me something that you feel you can execute and get it done? And if I don't see that, you've lost me for the next 30 seconds because I don't care how great your idea is. If you're just trying to sell me on something, If I don't, feel that you elude confidence in the first 10 seconds, I'm done.
When you say that, I want to dive into that just a little bit deeper. What exactly exudes confidence means? Is it a you're fumbling over the pitch or you're fumbling over your words? You don't look me in the eye. For you, what gives you that feeling that this person is confident about their business or about themselves?
Yeah, I'm looking you in your eye. The eyes lead straight to the soul. I'm listening to how you talk. Are you articulate? Can you explain what you are trying to get across to me? And how is it coming across? Because I'm acting as an investor. You know what I mean? Because I'm going to be putting you in contact with our clientele and our network of, potential investors. And if I'm not convinced, they're not going to be convinced.
And let me tag on to that, add on to that a little bit. Um, the thing about it is when you're speaking to these investors, you have to, like Cal said, you have to show the confidence, right? But you got to be able to look at them like they're just another person that you're telling the project to, right?
Mm,
Because what a lot of people will do is they will get in front of somebody, maybe somebody famous, maybe and they'll be a little bit nervous and they'll start to stutter, they'll start to lose focus, and the guy be like, "Oh, okay, all right, yeah, no problem. Speak to my PR person," and that's just a push away. Now it does happen, right? Even with the best of them, but if you exude confidence or something and treat them just like you treat everybody else, because most of the times investors, they're not looking for kiss asses, right? They're not looking for somebody to suck up to them, right? They're looking to somebody to tell them a good idea and to be able to explain it thoroughly
Okay. So if we're talking
with
about a
confidence.
30-second, got it,
Yeah.
got it. So if we're talking about a 30-second elevator pitch, it is basically a hi, my name is this with X, Y, and Z company. Here's what we do. Here's how we serve. Here's how we add value. Here's what we're doing to change the world. Or here's my $1 billion idea.
mhm.
And you
Yeah.
just want to give just enough for that investor to say, that sounds interesting. Tell me more. Or it could be a shock statement where they say, "What is that again?" Or "What do you mean?" Something to trigger them to continue the conversation. I think, from my perspective and what I've seen go wrong with elevator pitches, is people turn them into life stories.
Mhm.
And so I've been in many of conferences where when you walk up and introduce yourself to a person that may invest in you or whatever, and you give them your life story. Like, you don't even give them the opportunity to respond to what you said. There's no break. I watched this just a few weeks ago at a conference where a guy just he talked to the guy for like 3 minutes, and you could see the other person's eyes just glaze over. They was just, and I think this is also a part of that life story too much, but having the awareness and reading the room. If I'm talking to Kyle and Kyle starts looking left and right and he's waving at somebody else, and I've spent too much time. Kyle ain't paying me no attention no more. He
That
probably didn't
sounds
hear
like me.
nothing
I'll fall
else.
asleep on you.
See, Sean, so listen, Sean telling you he will fall asleep on you.
I will fall
30
asleep.
seconds, a impact statement, a introduction, not your life story. You're not close. People want to try to close the deal on the spot.
Right.
Mhm.
There's a scarcity mindset and then a false sense of urgency. Well, if I don't get Kyle right now, I might not ever be in front of him again. Here's my opportunity. And so you basically waste the opportunity because you go a little bit too far. Once we graduate from the elevator pitch, now that person's a little bit more interested. I had a guy do this to me. I had a conversation with him. He asked me for a one pager. Let's talk a little bit about the elements of a one pager.
Mhm.
I would give my mindset, I kind of frame it. because I just created our one pagers, revamped them, so it's a little fresh on my mind. A one pager is one page. We think that's clear. I've received one pagers that's two, three, 4 pages. That is not a one pager.
Right.
A one pager basically has your elevator pitch, a little bit about the company, the products or services or problem you solve, however you want to map that out. Maybe some, of course, at the bottom, contact information. Maybe some testimonials, some social proof, something somewhere in there to show I've done this work. And I like one pagers to have pictures and tell a story. I want to look at a one pager from top to bottom and feel like I have learned something through a story. You started me here, you captivated you got my attention, showed me some graphs, some colors. You showed me what you do in a graphical way, how you solve a problem, what your idea is, and then what's the next step, and then the contact. That's what I think of when I think about a one pager. Let me know what you guys think about a good one pager in your opinions.
Um, I think I believe that one pagers are supposed to tell the story and get the person interested, right? If you look at a business plan, sometimes a business plan may be 200 pages, 150 pages, 100 pages, whatever, right? It's like a book. Most people don't read the whole business plan. Most investors, they don't go through every page. Most investors don't read every page of the PPM. They understand all the disclosures and all of the risk and everything like that. They go right into the meat and potatoes. So basically, that one pager is more of a meat and potatoes. You're able to squeeze all of your information, your whole company, on that one page, and that one page have to be able to attract, lure in an investor to where he pretty much understands, but may have other questions, right? A good investor will ask a lot of questions, and a one pager is designed so that you can hook that investor in, and he can ask more questions.
Yeah, actually, you know, we one of our associates, he would actually do this. He would put together a one pager. He had about 900 investors that he would deal with. And so once you put out that teaser, it goes out to everybody in email, and then he would get probably about out of that 900, maybe about 80 or so responded if they were interested in that sector of business. And then from there, then now you would basically send out another correspondent to those 80 folks. And then when you get down to about maybe 10 to 8 real investors that would partake in what we're doing. And that was how I kind of learned how he did that. It was really, it started off with 900 and got down to about 10 to 8 people. And those would be the ones that actually got closed.
I love it. So Ms. Howard came in and said that one page is extremely important and has to be written very carefully. Thank you, Ms. Howard. And Ms. Howard is the go-to for government contracting, contracting with the state. She is the one when you want to get
Outstanding.
into those contracts.
And she's a veteran. Good job.
Absolutely.
Thank
Oh,
you
we
for your
all
service.
vets on the call. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
We
Yeah.
all
Thank
vets.
you, thank you for your service.
Another vet. Absolutely. And if we're talking about one pagers in the government world, GovCon state, it's a capability statement.
Mhm.
And that's typically a one pager. I've seen longer capability statements, especially when you have a large company. They have a lot of different sectors and verticals, and they may have two, three, 4 pages. They may have a deck, but typically that capability statement is a one pager. It is your NAICS codes, it is your past performance, any sort of clients, what you do, who your company is, what services you provide, again, what you do, and then contact information. That is the one pager.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with program managers and PMs and buyers from the Gov side, GovCon side, they're not reading, to Sean's point, your 30-page essay. What they're doing is they are skimming this capability statement and looking and seeing, is this a better, or is this worth another conversation?
Right.
Yep, capability statement.
Hmm.
And so as we continue through, and this is kind of, as you're listening in the audience, this is building the stage for you. Number one, you lock down your elevator pitch. You get your foot in the door. Kyle, I love the breakdown because I'm going to circle back and ask this question later, but I love the breakdown of you send out the one pager to 100 people, X amount respond, then you send a different correspondence out to that number of people. When they respond back, then when you get that small, I guess you're saying the serious ones,
Hmm.
then they get the pitch deck. And so let's talk about the pitch deck a little bit. And it's funny, Ms. Howard, we've judged some pitch decks together, so she knows exactly what we're talking about. When we get to the pitch deck, typically what I have seen is 10 to 12 slides. Those slides start out with your introduction, the story, company information, the problem you solve. Now, I hope you're keeping up with the slides in your mind. I'm not saying slide one, slide two, slide three, but I'm circling through this, going through them. Some financials.
Hmm.
What was your revenue? What was your expenses? What are your projections? Competition. Who are your competitors in the environment or in the market? And then what are you going to use the funds for? What are you asking for? How much money? What are the use of proceeds? And then you wrap up with a Q&A slide. So that's about 10 slides. It may go to 11 or 12, especially if you have a lot of services, you're a large company. But if you're a small company with just a handful of services or products, you don't really want to go over 10 slides. I look at all the time the most winning slides in the Y Combinator or any of these other big VC capital or VC firms. All of them are typically 10 to 13, maybe 14 slides. From your guys' perspective, and I know you see hundreds and hundreds of presentations and pitches, what have you seen be the optimal? Did I miss anything in my breakdown of the slides? What absolutely has to be in the pitch deck?
Did you say the solution?
Actually, I
And
didn't say it. I skipped over
yeah,
there. I skipped from problem, but I skipped the solution.
yeah. So solutions and management. Management.
Skip
Investors are
that
going to
too.
want to see who's leading the team. You know, so they're going to want to know.
How important is it when I'm looking at a pitch deck to see that management team, their experience, that background? Do you think that carries a lot of weight, or it's just like, they didn't put the management slide, we'll give them a pass?
Imagine getting a pitch deck, and you have the mother, the son, the daughter, zero experience, and they're trying to do is run a construction company. I think that would make a difference. You know.
Yeah, huge
Yeah.
difference.
We're looking for, we're looking for execution. So we need to see, okay, you get these funds, all right, can you execute? And past performance usually is a judge of what you can do, in the future. And so it's not always the case, but if you're looking at something in the past and you say, okay, you did this, 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 and this with just that, oh, then I'm mad. We give you this, and look at what you're going to be able to do. And that's what we're looking for. Now, can you execute that?
So it would be fair to
Real,
say if I'm a,
real quick, Tyrus, real quick,
go
because I
for
just
it.
want to add on too. I'm not saying it's impossible, right? That you don't have any qualifications in that industry, right, or history in that industry. Because when Cal and I, when we had our telecommunication companies, we never ran a telecommunication company. Cal's, I think your mother worked for a company or something like that.
Mother and father.
Excuse me,
Yeah, mother and father.
mother and father. But we didn't really have the intimate details of a telecommunication company. So we started off as a reseller, And through studying and finding out, asking a lot of questions, we said, oh, we can have our own product, right? So we went on to sign a contract with Bell South. And basically, we signed a contract. We saw this thing called digital phone or voice over IP that's coming out as well. So we said, oh, let's sign a contract with video phone because this is the future. And then we found out that Sprint and all these other companies have a monopoly on all the phone lines and everything. So they have to open it up to smaller companies. Oh, so let's sign a deal with one of those companies. And now we're able to have cell phones. So we never had that extensive experience in the beginning. But what we did was we researched a lot and spoke to a lot of people. Good, we had good lawyers, and they were able to kind of guide us through everything. I mean, even the diversity thing. What is it called again? That we had in Kentucky
minority diversity supplier.
Yeah, we heard about that through our lawyers. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but it helps a lot.
Okay. And I think to your point, it also helps is if you're a startup and you're doing pre-seed or seed and you haven't really built, you don't, your pre-revenue, your background and experience can go a long way because Kyle, to your point, I want to know if you can actually execute. And if you have history of executing, whether it's in this industry or not,
Yeah.
that can transfer over, but skill transfer, almost
Yep.
like in the military, skill bridge. You
Elon
come
Musk
out of the
was a good
military,
example.
yep, move into this work business, and you have that experience, those skills to transfer over. So I think that is a good slide to make sure that you have because you can show that I've done something that's worked in the past and I can do it here again. How important is it to have financials in your slide?
I would say financials are very important. Uh, the biggest thing though to me is performa. So if you have the financials, okay, that's great because I'm gonna look at okay, what have you been doing? You know, can you run a business? All right, you're successful, but what's the progression? And I'm looking for really this is the key. I'm only looking for 5 or 10. I'm looking for small gains. When you put some crazy stuff in there, like 50% and things like that, then that lets me know you really don't know what you're talking about. And when I see that, I'm like, okay, well, explain to me how you're gonna get there. Now you done opened up the trap, and now you done put your foot in it and now it's like, okay, well, that look good and that sounds good, but right now you're talking out the side of your neck. Okay, so show me small gains, and that's what we look for.
And I have a little bit different mentality because I mean the thing about it is if you have a startup company, right? What's and I'm not trying to doubt you or nothing, Carol, but I'm just saying what's 50% of nothing, you know? So a growth like that is, if you make $1,000, I mean, that's what 1,000%, right? And you're coming from zero. Or if you make $50, you're at 50%, right? So it's I guess my math is right on that, but 50% of zero is $50, But
Right.
sometimes people start off with smaller companies, they are able to grow faster than a lot larger companies, right? So like a company like ours right now, we can do a 200% year, 300% year, and it wouldn't
Hmm.
be that enormous because we're not talking billions of dollars. We're talking maybe a couple of million. You know what I mean? So it makes a difference on the size of the company, whether it's a startup, whether, like Cal was saying earlier, whether they already have revenues coming in. If they already have revenues coming in, they don't have any financials. So you got to be able to show some type of forecast. And the forecast, I will put a 10-year forecast in there on every year that what you're looking at doing and how much money you're going to get from that and the potential in the future. That's what I would
Right,
put
and
in,
that's
especially for
and that's
startups.
why I said to Sean's point again. So in your financials in the beginning, and you're growing like that, you can show that in the past.
Yeah.
But when you're going forward, you can't show a 200, 200 growth in a performer. that's going to look crazy. You
Yeah.
can do that, but that should be in your past. That shouldn't be in the performer coming up forward. That's why I said. So that's why, if you're looking at that and you can grow like that, you still wouldn't want to put that in there because we're not. You're not going to take that serious.
Yeah.
I like that.
And real quick, Tyrus, to add on what Kyle point, I was looking at a deck before, and I'm looking at it, had like he was doing like 200,000, and then it's like in 3 years, 5 years, it's like 50 million. And I'm like, how
Right.
are you gonna get up to 50 million?
Right. Right.
That's it's like what do you I mean, what are you doing like a new freaking nuclear generator or something that's going to transform the world that everybody's going to be, instantly, buying? It's stuff just does, this is business. It just doesn't happen like that.
Right. And yeah, and real quick, like how many times have you seen those businesses that have been around for years, or whatever, and they got those charts, and those charts go like this, and it just shoots right up. That's where you're going to see that kind of growth. But that's past history. You see what I mean? That's not in the performer. They're just showing, okay, but you see that arrow and it shoots up like that? It's like the ski slope or whatever. And then it's got the point. It's still going up.
It's always better to be conservative,
Right.
right? And get the investor and say, and Mr. Investor, look, we had a 200% year. I know we only marked down for 30%. This year we did 200%. That's great news. He's going to go, oh man, that's fantastic. Then to say, yeah, we're going to do 200% next year, and you only do like 20%. The investor comes like, well, what happened? I thought you was going to do 200%. It's always better to be conservative.
I think that's one of the nuances then. Every pitch deck isn't going to be the same or follow the exact same principles. You got to know based on where you are in your business how to show specific numbers at specific times. Because I agree with you, Kyle, 1,000%. When I hear numbers, I'm like, did you look at your industry and see the growth in your
Yeah.
industry year over year, month over month? For you to say I'm gonna go from 0 to 100,000 when that doesn't happen in your industry,
Right.
and did you do the right study? So with that said, I want to segue into common mistakes that are seen in pitch decks that not necessarily will keep you from getting funding, but it will knock you back a couple of paces. That's one of them. It is inaccurate finances. For me, a sloppy deck, meaning I see a lot of individuals just don't put the level of effort to make sure that they're, and this could be a me thing. You guys can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. If I see misspelled words, if I see you doing a bar chart, but the bars don't move up and down based on the numbers, they all the same size, but the numbers are different at the bottom. If I can't read it, Sean, you kind of hit with that. You hit with that deck that I did one time. You was like, I can't see it. I can't read
Yeah.
the background and the letters. The aesthetic of the deck, while may not be as important as the information, it can turn off some individuals. Because I think that from an investor mind, even myself, I spot check a deck first before I even read it all. I just look through it. Oh, oh, they got these bars wrong. Do these numbers even add up or make sense? A lot of founders don't have the financial acumen to do the projections. So what I'm saying for you is to go get that help. Pay a bookkeeper, pay a CPA, pay somebody that can just map the numbers out. Even throw it in ChatGPT. ChatGPT is getting smarter every day. Drop it in there and ask it to build a pro forma for you for your industry based on these numbers, this information, this data, where you want to go, and for the purpose of a pitch deck. Because that's one of the common things I see is the numbers don't add up. The numbers are all over the place. The the aesthetics are all wrong. It's misspelled. That's my number one.
Yeah.
For you guys, what are some of the things that you see that are just not immediate disqualifiers, but they set you back?
Hmm.
I think for me, Yeah, misspellings and all of this font, the font stuff, like you said, Tyrus, the font being, barely legible, barely readable, I think that's a huge point because you got to show that you put in some effort. You know, you just didn't make this thing up overnight. You put in some effort, you put some money into it. I think for me, another problem that I have a lot of times is the people's dream isn't big enough. Um, you know, raising capital and building your company that way, going public is one of the fastest and best ways to build wealth. So if you have a company and it could possibly expand across the US, shoot for that. Don't shoot for the south side of Charlotte or don't shoot for your city. Shoot for if you could shoot for the state, the East Coast, the Midwest, this Central and West Coast, the whole across the whole United States. Raise money for that. Don't raise money for just some small mom and pop shop. Think of it like you're building a conglomerate. Um, the worst thing you can do is give an investor present an opportunity to an investor, and it's too small a deal for him because he
Hmm.
thinks you're like a piker. I mean, you're raising. Cal, he asked me the other day. He said the guy want to raise 30,000. It's like it's not even worth it. Why would you could get a loan for that? You go to one of your buddies, go in business. And he said, well, what would be the minimum? I said, man, at least Cal said 500,000. You know, I'm saying more 250, but that's just the start. That's not the end. You know, you got to be able you got to be able to grow this business, man. Because again, if people are going to pay for it, why not take advantage of it?
Kyle, before you jump in, Sean, you say that a lot. Having the idea big enough. And this is something that I'm witnessing on spending all these times on all these panels and listening to these business owners and talking to them. A lot of them just they're not dreaming big enough.
Yeah.
They're trying to. I talked to a guy today. He works in GovCon, in the GovCon space, and he said that he works with businesses that are 25 million plus revenue. And he was saying to me, companies are just too small. And what I'm seeing is the mindset is just too small. The terminology he used was a lot of companies want to build lifestyle companies. They don't want to build businesses. They want to build a company that will sustain their lifestyle. They're
Mhm.
not interested in putting money back in the business so it can grow. They're not really that interested in hiring and managing people so it can grow. They're not interested in innovation so the business can grow. They don't really want a business. They want something to supplement their lifestyle. And that goes into, Sean, what you're talking about, the dream not being big enough because all I want to do is pay my next bill. All I want to do is make six figures. Like, I don't know when six figures became the point of people just wanting to make $100,000 and they thought they were set for life. Then you just want to make $1 million. It's almost, and when you talk to these people, here's what I get: it is not enough. $1 million ain't enough. 2 million, 10 million ain't enough. And I go back to something I heard from somebody else. If I ask you, Kyle, how healthy do you want to be? You're not gonna say I just want to be healthy enough.
Right.
How educated do you want your kids to be? Well, I just want them to be educated enough. I just want to be fit enough. You don't say that, but for money, people say I just want enough to do X, Y, and Z instead of dreaming big, like Sean's talking about, and trying to go after a $1 billion vision. Like Les Brown used to say, just shoot for the moon, and if you don't hit it, you'll land in the stars. But you still going further than just trying to drive down the street.
Right.
And that is, I think, a lot of the holdback for a lot of founders when they struggle with raising capital is because their mindset isn't even big enough. They just need $7,500 so I can just do a marketing campaign. I just need $20,000 so I can get one piece of equipment. I just need $5,000. And then you go to an investor who is like, well, if I want 10% on my $5,000, that's $500. Well,
It's
that doesn't
nothing.
move the needle.
Yeah,
Right.
nothing.
Right.
Doesn't move it.
And
So,
and you know how many times Cal and I we uh, uh, boost up companies and bring life to companies. We speak up to companies. So we would get a business owner on the phone, and we see the vision better than he see the vision.
mm,
Yeah.
Right? We will build up his company for him because he doesn't see it. Right? And it's
that's
like,
those free consultation calls I told y'all need
yeah,
to be charging for.
we're bringing life to his company, making him think, what do you, this is not a uh, Youngstown, Ohio product. This is a United States, this is an all over the world product. So why are you raising 250,000? Why not do the crowdfunding, do the max 5 million? Then after that, you can either do another 5 million or you could do the 506C and raise an unlimited capital. Let's do this thing the right way. And if you really want to benefit from it, you build up your company, you build up your shares that you have, and you take it public. But let's not just think of a small city. Let's think of the United States. And I'm telling you, I'm willing to bet, Cal, 90% of the calls we see more of the company than they do.
Yeah.
We see
Yeah.
more of what the company can do.
I was always told, if you want $100 million company, you need to be national, the
Yeah.
United States.
Yeah.
If you want to be $1 billion company, you need to be global.
Yep,
Need to be
global.
global.
So, we're like, look, if can you sell your product all over the world? Okay, well, can you at least get it all across the United States? And even the conversation that we had last week, we were talking to with the company. And we asked, this one gentleman, we said, well, yeah, if you were to franchise your business, because we were talking about how you could either have a general manager and open up, locations all over, or franchise. And then we talked about franchise. We said, well, how much would you charge? How much you think you would charge for a franchise? And, when he said about $40,000, he's got a truck that he has. The truck by itself could cost anywhere between $40,000 to $50,000. So how could that be a franchise when the truck by itself could cost that much? What about the rest of the business? You know what I mean? What about the inventory that you need for the business? What about the equipment that you need to put that together? What about just a payment that you would want? So when we had the conversation, it was like, wow. But yet this business that we saw just from what they were doing, this gentleman made over $230,000 in a year, just started it at a scratch.
Yeah.
And Sean and I are like, oh my goodness, this is $100 million business.
And
If you
it's
put
the
this
local
into
area. It's the local
Yeah.
area.
crazy.
With
And
one guy.
yeah, one
Yeah.
guy. Right. So that's what we're talking about. And then again, we was on a call the other day, and this guy. I mean, you would think about it, but it's crazy. But it's a landscaping business. So some people that in the landscaping business, I guess I can understand. Probably a couple years ago, he was just cutting neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're talking about, look, you're cutting businesses. You're not cutting homes anymore. You're cutting businesses with a lot of area, with a lot of space. This is $100 million business for you. But he's like, well, just me and my sons, we can take care of it. You got 2 sons, that's it.
They don't go cut so much.
Yeah, we're like, what? Come on. So yeah, so like Sean said, we got to stretch them. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, but we as a people, we probably only think about 3 times what we can make, and we don't
Mm,
think bigger than that.
wow. Here's the thing that I want to circle back. I said I was going to circle back on a thing based on Kyle, what you shared about the email, sending out the email to the numbers. I've seen and started to see, and sometimes they recommend sending emails out with your pitch deck attached to it. Would you recommend, or would you think then it would be smarter to do it in that increment? Don't send the pitch deck out first. Send a one pager, and then if the person
Course.
shows some interest, then send your deck out to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I would, send out because that one pager, that's actually what we would call a teaser.
Mm,
So
okay.
that's the teaser. So you send it out to your 900 folks, 900 potential investors, whatever. Because remember, what sector are they interested in? Is it healthcare? Is it oil and gas? Is it precious metals? Is it real estate or development? So you have to make sure whatever section that you're in, that segment of the business, you get that out, and all those people that are interested in that, they're gonna hit back because a lot of people they may be in a certain sector and they're like that. Well, this is great, but this is not for me. I don't know if you watch Shark Tank and you see, Mark Cuban all the
Yep.
time. Well, what? Hey, this is great, but hey, this is not me. That's not my area. You might want to talk to Susie over there or something like that, or Mr. Wonderful. But yeah, like that.
Very good. And this was Mark Cuban's last season on Shark Tank.
Really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he said that he wants to spend more time with his family in the summer, and they record the show in the summer. So this was his last. They was on there crying and everything.
uh,
I said, man, I almost shed me about one, two tears. I said, oh, they got my man going off Mark
yeah. I don't
Cuban.
think he's shedding too much because he's going to do that fund now. He's got a fund.
Bingo.
That's where he's going to be. And he's going to be managing that fund. He is the principal.
Hey, it makes sense. It
Yeah.
makes sense. So as we get ready to wrap this up, what we talked about tonight, and for those of you who may watch this on a replay, you may have questions later. Definitely drop the comments on the video so we can see it. I'll be in there. We'll have team somebody answer it. We talked about being confident about your pitch. We talked about the elements of the pitch, starting from your elevator, your 30-second, just to get the tell me more, to your one pager, which is, we can just call it a mini business proposal, or we can call it a one pager. We can call it a teaser, a mini plan, whatever you want to call that one pager, to give them a little bit more information. And then when they show more interest, then we can move into the pitch deck. Here's something that we didn't cover tonight that I do want to cover before we leave. And here's something that I've seen over just judging pitches. The pitch deck itself, the slides, they're not there for you to read them word for word, because I can read. I don't need you to read it to me. It's there for a visual placeholder while we navigate through the conversation. So I'm telling you about my business, my story, my points, my solving the problem, my projections, my competitors, and the slides are just there to back me up. One of the things that I see, and this goes back to some of the mistakes I see with pitches, is the person, for whatever reason, they may not be as familiar with the numbers as they should be. They may not have as much confidence as they should, but for whatever reason, they stumble over the pitch deck while they're reading it. To me, whether it's a red flag or not, me personally, I take that as a red flag, and I feel like you don't know what you're talking about.
Mhm.
If you can't read the slide deck and without fumbling, and you can't talk through it, you don't know the business. You have to think about it as if I called you on the phone and you don't have the pitch deck, and I give you about 10 minutes of my time to tell me about your idea and all the things in it. You should be able to just talk the pitch deck on the phone
Mhm.
and then say, hey, I'm going to follow up with an email with the actual deck that you can see. So if you think about it in that perspective, you will set yourself up to get on these stages and pitch without having to rely on the deck. Great example of what happened that I seen just recently. It was actually students, MBA students at a university. They were showing their decks on how they help business owners during the incubator process. The PowerPoint failed.
Mhm.
When it failed, the lady that was talking stuck. She looking back, it won't click,
Sweating.
froze. She couldn't even segue. She couldn't even make a joke. Man, technology messed us up tonight. But while they're fixing it, I'm going to go boom, boom, boom. She was stuck. The guy that was on her team had to come in and take over. That's an over reliance on the deck. The deck is a tool for support, it is not the thing. You are the business in the beginning. As the business grows, it takes a life of its own. It becomes separate from you. It is no longer you. But in that very beginning moment, and you have to think about it this way. If I had somebody pitching on my behalf, a team member, a biz dev person, or somebody else, it's not, everybody needs to know that information. So don't rely on the pitch deck as your end all be all, and definitely don't read it word for word. We can read. So that goes back to what Sean was talking about earlier and what we talked about with graphics and design. You shouldn't have a wordy pitch deck. Nobody's looking at it to read paragraphs. We're talking bullet point items, highlights with some nice graphics and displays while you talk about it and convey your story or your ask or your use of proceeds. And so as we get ready to close out, what are your guys' final thoughts, final advice? Somebody is getting ready to do a pitch. They're trying to get a deck design. What are your guys' advice to those founders, those business owners that are in that position?
I think we kind of skipped over something that that's real important. Most people have a fear of speaking to other people, right? They have a fear of public speaking. I think it's what is it, Cal? The first or second biggest fear that people have?
Yep.
Number one? Something
Yeah,
like that?
dying is number two.
Yeah. What's number two?
Dying.
Dying. So, yeah. So most people are nervous as heck and they're scared to talk to somebody because, I don't know if they're scared of hearing no. How I got over it was I would always say to myself, this guy is going to buy from somebody. Why not you? He's going to buy. Why not me? And that right there changed my mindset 20, 25, 30 years ago on speaking in front of people.
Yeah, I would say that when we were starting our company, and again, I was so confident that when I was talking to people, I have one buddy of mine that I talked to, and I was talking to him to becoming a customer, and to be a customer was like $499. And I was so confident in my conversation with him. He was like, look, I don't want to be a customer. He said, I want to invest in the company. And he wrote me out a check for $5,000 right there. That's when I realized that why am I wasting my time selling customers? And that's why when we train and we talk and we do our class, I share with people, stop talking to investors like they're a customer. Investors aren't your customers. Investors are people that they want to put money into your business.
Yeah.
And what do they want? They want an ROI. And I was so proud that a couple years later, his $5,000 investment, I was able to give him, for every one share he had at JMI, I was able to give him 2.5 shares of JMI Telecom Corp. But that was, for me, that's what started everything. And again, speaking with that confidence and just basically just alluded, execution, he believed enough to say, I don't want to be a customer, and wrote a check for $5,000.
That's good. I think for me, just tying in both of your stories, I've never had a fear of public speaking because I was trained to speak. My mama had me as a young boy doing the programs at church, the master of ceremony, the speeches, and I couldn't read them. Everybody, grown people up there reading their speech. I had to memorize mine. Now she claims she don't remember that. I'm like, nope, I remember. You made me memorize it. So I was trained to talk. Never had an issue with that. What I've learned is coupled with that is talking about what you know or what you researched and you have some clarity on. So the first capital I ever raised, and I even know about capital raising in that sense, was from a real estate investor or a guy who was willing to invest in me investing in real estate.
Mhm.
And essentially, I would just talk about the idea. I had never flipped a house before, but I researched, I learned the process, the mechanics of it, and I used to talk about it. And he said, "You always talking about real estate and flipping these houses. Why haven't you done it?" And I said, "I don't have the money." And he said, "Well, if you had the money, what would you do?" Elevator pitch. And I was ready. I would do this. I would find the houses, how I find it. I'm a licensed realtor. I can pull it on MLS. I have some contractor relationships. They're going to do this. Boom, 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 boom. Here's how we would make money. We get a $20,000, $30,000 house in Baltimore City in specific areas. You put about 50,000 in it. You're in 80, 90,000 all in. Sell it for 140, 150. You make about 25, 30,000. Fees aside. I don't need a pitch deck for that. Now, can I put it on the deck and raise a lot of money? Sure. But I knew it. And then he said, let's have a conversation and talk about it more. When we had the more conversation, it was just me talking. I didn't have a pitch deck. I didn't have a one pager, but that would have been my pitch deck moment. And he said, well, break it down to me again how you will do all of this. And because I knew the process, I broke it down. I ain't never done it. All hypothetical. It was just research. It was information. It was a background that I had in process, technology, systems, and doing a job. We worked together, so he knew I was great at doing a job. So the execution, Kyle, to your point, he wrote me $100,000 check. And we flipped the house and got some money, and we keep on going. And so every time I need something, I go to him. He's one of the private money people that we like to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And all I do is give him an idea, a thought, and how he's going to get his money back. Now, as we do more investors and we do these raises, we put it on a pitch deck. But you have to know the information. And so with that being said, we are at our time. If you have questions around pitch decks, design, the elements or components that should be in a pitch deck, or even just the confidence that you need, that is what our Capital Raising Academy is for. That is why we are here. We want you to reach out to us. Just DM Legacy Wealth Capital Group, DM me, and we could talk through how to get you to a space of thinking bigger, billion-dollar dreams, the confidence that you need to approach it, and then all the elements and components of building out your elevator pitch, your one pager, and your pitch deck so you can raise capital successfully and not continue the process you may be currently doing, which is I need more money in my business. I don't know where I'm going to get it from. Maybe I get a loan. Maybe I put on a credit card. Maybe I can borrow from my first cousin. Maybe I can go try to do a pitch competition and lose because my pitches are formulated. So that's what we're here for. Sean, Kyle, this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed this. I learned some things. I took some things away myself as I put together our pitch decks and things like that. So I appreciate you guys. I appreciate everybody that tuned in, tapped in. Ms. Howard, you've been in here with us the whole time, dropping comments. I appreciate you as always, and definitely for sharing our information all across LinkedIn. You stay doing that for us. So have a great night. We will see you all next week, and we'll talk to you soon.
God bless you
Hey,
guys. Take care.